A 6-year-old girl ran into the storm, desperate to find anyone who could save her grandmother lying unconscious at home. Every house in town was dark except a diner packed with bikers. Soaked and shaking, the girl begged them for help. Minutes later, engines roared to life and motorcycles thundered through the rain toward a dying woman. What happened next would change their lives forever. Before we dive in this story, let us know where you're watching from. We love to hear your thought. The rain came down in sheets that Saturday, turning the streets of Oak Ridge into rivers of gray water and darkness. 6-year-old Maya Jenkins burst from her grandmother's small house, her white dress already soaked through, clinging to her thin frame. Her bare feet slapped against the wet pavement as she ran, each step sending jolts of cold pain up her legs. But she didn't stop, couldn't stop. Behind her, in the little blue house with the peeling paint, Grandma Lorraine lay on the kitchen floor, eyes closed, not moving. The street was empty. Every house Maya passed had darkened windows, empty driveways. It was the day of the Harvest Festival downtown. The whole town had gone. Everyone except Grandma, who'd been too tired to attend, and Maya, who'd stayed home to help. Maya's lungs burned. Her chest felt like it might explode. But she kept running, her small legs pumping as hard as they could, rain streaming down her face, mixing with tears she didn't know she was crying. 10 minutes ago, everything had been normal. Grandma had been at the stove, stirring a pot of vegetable soup, humming that old hymn she always hummed when she cooked. The kitchen had smelled like home, like warmth and safety and love. "Maya, baby, can you get me the pepper from the pantry?" Grandma had asked. "Yes, ma'am," Maya had replied, sliding off her chair at the kitchen table where she'd been coloring. She'd gone to the pantry. Been gone maybe 10 seconds. Then she heard it. The crash of the pot hitting the floor, soup splashing everywhere, and then worse, the heavy, terrible thud of Grandma's body collapsing. Maya had run back to find Lorraine Jenkins on the floor, vegetables scattered around her, soup pooling under her head. Grandma's eyes were rolled back, showing only the whites. Her breathing was wrong, shallow and wheezy, like she couldn't get enough air. Her face had gone gray, a color Maya had never seen on her grandmother before, a color that made Maya's stomach twist with terror. "Grandma, Grandma, wake up." Maya had shaken her shoulder, but Grandma didn't move. Maya had grabbed the phone, tried to dial 911. Her hands shook so badly she kept hitting the wrong buttons. When she finally got through, a recorded voice said all operators were busy due to high call volume from the festival. "Please hold." She couldn't hold. Grandma needed help now. Then Maya remembered something Grandma had told her months ago. They'd been walking past Sally's roadside diner when Maya saw 5 big men in black leather vests standing by motorcycles. Maya had grabbed Grandma's hand tight, suddenly scared by how rough and mean they looked. But Grandma had smiled down at her. "Don't you be scared of them, baby. Those are real bikers, the ones with patches on their vests. They're good people. You ever need help and can't find a police officer, you find bikers like those. They protect folks. But they look scary, Grandma." "I know," Grandma smiled, "but sometimes good people just look different, that's all. What matters is what's in their heart, not what's on their face or clothes. You remember that, okay?" Now, running through the rain with Grandma dying on the kitchen floor, Maya clung to that memory like it was the only thing keeping her from drowning. Sally's diner was 6 blocks away. 6 blocks felt like 6 miles, but Maya's legs kept moving. Her white dress was plastered to her body, heavy with rain. Her bare feet were numb from the cold, but she felt every sharp stone, every piece of broken pavement. She rounded the corner onto Main Street, gasping for air, and saw it, Sally's Diner, its neon sign flickering red and blue through the rain. In the parking lot, 5 motorcycles stood in a perfect line, chrome gleaming even under the storm. Beside them, 5 men in black leather vests marked with the death head skull emblem of the Hells Angels smoked in the rain. Their cuts were heavy with patches, names, ranks, cities, and their arms inked with faded tattoos of eagles and fire. Beards glistened with rainwater. Boots splashed against puddles. They looked like thunder given shape, ready to ride. "No," Maya gasped. "Please don't go. Please." The engines were starting, that deep rumbling sound that made the air vibrate. The biggest man, with a salt and pepper beard and shoulders as wide as a door, had just thrown his leg over his Harley when he heard something that cut through the thunder and rain. A child's scream. "Wait, please wait." The leader killed his engine immediately, turned his head, saw a little girl running through the rain toward them, barefoot, in a white dress, terror written across her face in lines too deep for a child that young. He dismounted in one smooth motion, dropped to one knee as she reached him, putting himself at her eye level. His eyes, the color of weathered steel, took her in fast, no visible injuries, but soaking wet, barefoot, and scared out of her mind. "Easy," he said. His voice was rough from years of cigarettes and wind, but steady. "Calm. Hey, breathe, kiddo. What's your name?" She hiccuped through her sobs. Maya." "Okay, Maya." His tone softened, grounding her. "You're safe now. Tell me what happened." It wasn't a question, it was a command, but gentle. Maya tried to speak, but couldn't catch her breath. She grabbed his vest with both small hands, her fingers clutching the worn leather like it was the only solid thing left in a world that had suddenly gone crazy. My grandma," she managed between gasping sobs. "She fell. Won't wake up." Her eyes, they rolled back, and she fell, and there's soup everywhere, and she won't wake up. She's where? Not a question, one word. Direct. Home. Elm Street. Blue house with the broken shutter. Please. The leader looked at his brothers. They were already moving. No words exchanged, they'd ridden together too long for words. The scarred one with the graying beard already had his phone out, dialing. The oldest with silver hair headed for his truck. The others followed like a machine coming to life. "Get on," the leader said, gesturing to the back of his bike. "Hold on tight, don't let go." Maya didn't hesitate. She climbed onto the motorcycle, her small arms barely reaching around his broad back, and held on with everything she had. "Which way?" "Left. Then straight 5 blocks. Then right on Elm." Her voice was muffled against his leather vest, but he heard every word. 5 engines roared to life at once, thunder on wheels. They tore out of the parking lot, in tight formation, the leader in the lead with Maya clinging to him, the others flanking in a V that spoke of years riding together, of brotherhood forged in chrome and asphalt. The leader kept his speed high, but controlled. His left hand was steady on the throttle, right hand ready at the brake. The kid on his back was shaking from cold, from fear, probably both, but she held on tight. Brave kid. The rain hammered down, turning the world into a gray blur. But his eyes stayed sharp, scanning the road ahead, the intersections, the blind corners. "Right here." Maya shouted over the engine noise. He pulled hard into the driveway, the others right behind. Before the engines were fully silent, Maya was scrambling down, running for the open front door. "Kitchen," she cried. The 5 men moved as one. Boots on the small porch, through the modest living room, with its worn furniture and family photos on the walls. They found Lorraine Jenkins on the kitchen floor, exactly as Maya had described, collapsed, soup everywhere, vegetables scattered like debris from an explosion. A woman maybe 65, gray-faced and barely breathing. The one who moved like a medic was the first to reach her. He dropped to his knees, fingers going to her neck, checking for a pulse. His other hand went to her wrist, then hovered over her mouth, feeling for breath. Pulse weak, breathing shallow. His voice was flat, clinical, no emotion, just facts. "Ambulance." "Calling," the scarred one said, phone already at his ear. He listened, his face going hard. "Delayed. Festivals got everything tied up. 20 minutes minimum." "She doesn't have 20, the medic said, looking at the blue tinge spreading around Lorraine's lips. "We move her ourselves, or she dies." "My truck," the silver-haired one said. "Already walking." "Do it." They worked with the efficiency of men who'd operated in crisis before. No panic, no wasted motion. The silver-haired one and another went to prep the truck, fold down the back seat, make room. The medic and the scarred one positioned themselves to lift Lorraine, one supporting her head and neck, the other taking her legs. The leader stayed with Maya, who stood frozen in the doorway, her small body shaking uncontrollably, now that the adrenaline was wearing off. He knelt beside her, put one large hand on her thin shoulder. "We're taking your grandma to the hospital. not waiting for the ambulance. You ride with us, understand? Maya nodded, unable to speak. They carried Lorraine out to the truck, moving as gently as possible but with speed. Got her laid flat in the back, the medic climbing in beside her to monitor her breathing, her pulse, everything. Maya went up front with the silver-haired driver. The leader and the others mounted their bikes. The truck pulled out first, the medic in the back with Lorraine, his fingers on her pulse, counting, watching. The motorcycles followed, 2 in front, to clear traffic if needed, 3 behind as rear guard. They ran every red light, didn't slow for stop signs when the intersections were clear. The truck hit 60 on streets where the limit was 35, but nobody cared. They had a dying woman in the back, and no time for rules. Maya sat rigid in the passenger seat, her small hands clenched into fists, her eyes squeezed shut, her lips moved silently, prayers her grandmother had taught her, words she didn't fully understand, but clung to anyway. Please God, don't take her. Please let her be okay. Please, please, please. The driver glanced at her, then reached over and squeezed her shoulder once. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. County General Hospital appeared through the rain, its emergency entrance blazing with light. 2 of the bikers had called ahead. A trauma team stood waiting with a gurney, ready to receive Lorraine the moment the truck screeched to a stop. Everything happened fast after that. Doctors and nurses swarming, shouting medical terms Maya didn't understand. The medic rattling off information in that same flat, clinical voice. Patient symptoms, time of collapse, vital signs. Someone tried to steer Maya toward the waiting room, but she grabbed the leader's hand with both of hers and wouldn't let go. I need to stay with Grandma. A nurse knelt down, her voice gentle. Honey, the doctors need space to work. You can see her once they've stabilized her. But she's all I got. Maya's voice broke. If she dies, I don't have anybody. Please let me stay. The leader knelt beside her, looked her in the eye, not down at her, but level, treating her like a person, not just a scared kid. Doctors are gonna help her, but you being in there makes their job harder. Best thing you can do for your grandma right now, let them work. But what if she dies while I'm out here? What if your grandma knows you love her, knows you ran for help, knows you didn't give up on her? His voice was steady, matter of fact. When the doctors say you can see her, you will. Not a maybe, a certainty. You promise. I don't make promises I can't keep. Maya looked at him, this big rough man with the weathered eyes and the leather vest covered in patches she didn't understand, looked at him, and saw something that made her nod slowly. Okay. The waiting room was sterile and cold, fluorescent lights humming overhead, plastic chairs that squeaked when you moved. Maya sat wrapped in a blanket someone had given her, surrounded by 5 bikers who looked completely out of place but weren't leaving. The scarred one had disappeared for 10 minutes, came back with juice boxes and crackers from a vending machine. Maya couldn't eat, her stomach was too twisted up, but she held the juice box in both hands like it was something to anchor herself to. One of them sat beside her, not talking, just there. His presence was solid, quiet, undemanding. The medic had vanished into the ER. His medical credentials got him access the others didn't have. He'd check on Lorraine's progress, report back. The silver-haired driver and the leader stood near the entrance, arms crossed, watching, waiting, ready to move if needed. An hour crawled by with the speed of continental drift, then 2. The waiting room's clock ticked loud enough to be heard between the announcements on the intercom, each tick feeling like a small eternity. Finally the medic emerged through the double doors. His expression was carefully neutral, the face of a man who'd learned long ago not to show emotion until he had to. She's alive. Maya let out a sob so profound, it shook her entire small body. Relief hit like a physical wave, making her dizzy. The medic knelt down in front of her, his eyes meeting hers. Your grandma's not in immediate danger anymore, he said, his tone steady but gentle. She didn't have a heart attack, it was exhaustion, plain and simple. Her body's been running on empty for too long. Dehydration, low blood pressure, severe fatigue, and the kind of stress that eats at you from the inside. Her age just made it worse. He glanced toward the ICU doors, then back at Maya. The doctors gave her fluids, stabilized her vitals, and she's resting now. She was critical last night, but she's stable, she's sedated so her body can recover. She needs peace and quiet, for at least 24 hours, maybe more. Can I see her? Not yet, but baby, his voice softened just slightly. Your grandma's gonna make it. Long recovery ahead, but she'll live. Fresh tears rolled down Maya's cheeks, but these weren't fear tears anymore. They were the kind that came when the world suddenly gave you hope back. A nurse brought her a blanket and a small carton of apple juice. Maya held it tight, still watching the ER doors like her eyes could pull her grandmother back out. The leader sat nearby, his large hands clasped, the leather of his vest creaking quietly whenever he shifted. The scarred one leaned against the wall. The driver and medic stood near the coffee machine, whispering in low voices. After a while, a woman in a hospital badge came over. Not harsh, just tired from a long day. You must be Maya, she said softly. Sweetheart, you did a brave thing bringing help. Your grandma's in good hands now. Maya nodded, but didn't look up. She's all I got. I know, honey. The woman crouched beside her. She's going to need a few days here to get strong again. Do you have someone who can stay with you? Maya hesitated. It's just me and Grandma. The woman frowned slightly, glancing toward the group of leather-clad men sitting nearby. The leader met her look without flinching. She's not alone, he said quietly. We're staying. The woman blinked, unsure what to make of that, but something in his tone stopped her from arguing. You all family? We are now, the leader said simply. Maya woke before sunrise, still wrapped in the blanket the nurse had given her. She was in the leader's arms. He'd carried her through the night, when she started shivering. His leather vest draped over her like a shield. For a moment she didn't know where she was. The lights were dim, the waiting room empty, except for the soft snore of the driver slumped in a chair, and the scarred one standing guard by the window, coffee cup in hand. Then it all came rushing back, the rain, the running. Grandma collapsing on the kitchen floor, her chest tightened. She wriggled free and looked up at the leader. Can we see her now? His stirred voice gravelly from sleep. Our friend's been checking on her every hour, said soon. As if on cue, the double doors at the end of the hallway swung open. The medic stepped out, his scrubs wrinkled, his eyes rimmed red from exhaustion, but lighter than last night. She's awake, he said simply. Maya didn't wait for permission. The blanket slid off her shoulders as she bolted down the hallway, her small bare feet slapping the cold linoleum. She burst into the ICU room. Machines hummed softly. Monitors blinked steady green. Lorraine Jenkins lay propped against the pillows, pale but conscious, an oxygen tube beneath her nose. When she saw Maya, her lips curved into a trembling smile. Baby, the word rasped but carried warmth. Maya rushed forward, burying her face against her grandmother's blanket. Grandma, I thought you died. Lorraine's weak hand lifted, fingers brushing through her curls. Shh, baby. I'm still here, she whispered. You saved me. I didn't know what to do, Maya said through tears. I ran and ran. Nobody answered. Then I found them, the bikers with the patches. They came, Grandma, just like you said. Lorraine blinked. Bikers. Before Maya could reply, a deep, gravelly voice came from the doorway. Morning, ma'am. Lorraine turned her head. A tall man stood there, broad shoulders, salt and pepper beard, leather vest heavy with patches. His eyes met hers with quiet steadiness. You're the one who helped my granddaughter, she murmured. Yes, ma'am. His tone was even. She found us. We just did what needed doing. Her voice quivered. Most people wouldn't. Most people ain't her, he said softly, nodding toward Maya. Lorraine's smile faltered into confusion. You're good men, but I don't even know your names. The man paused, then said simply, names don't matter much right now, Mom. What matters is you're alive and your granddaughter's safe. But I should know who to thank. You already thanked us by being here, he said. Rest now, we'll talk later. That afternoon, while Maya napped curled in a chair beside the bed, Lorraine asked to see her doctor. The young nurse came first, smiling gently. Good news, Miss Jenkins. Your condition's improving faster than expected. You might be able to go home tomorrow. Lorraine exhaled in relief, until the nurse added, and your account's been settled. She blinked. Settled? Yes, ma'am. Paid in full. Her throat tightened. Paid? By who? The nurse flipped her clipboard. Anonymous donor, cash payment this morning. Didn't leave a name. Lorraine's heart stuttered. She looked toward the door, where the faint sound of boots echoed in the hallway. Them, she whispered. The nurse hesitated, following her gaze. 5 men in leather jackets. Lorraine nodded slowly. Yes, ma'am. They said it was taken care of. Lorraine's hands trembled. Why would they do that? I don't know, the nurse said kindly. But not everyone does something like that for nothing. After she left, Lorraine sat in stunned silence, the faint beep of the heart monitor marking time she couldn't grasp. When the leader came in a few minutes later, she looked up sharply. You, she said, her voice steadying. You paid my bill. He didn't deny it. Didn't want you worrying about money while you're healing. Why? She demanded. Her tone wasn't ungrateful, just bewildered. Why would you help us this much? He paused, then met her gaze evenly. We've got our reasons, ma'am. We'll explain when the time's right. I don't like debts I don't understand, she said firmly. He gave a faint smile. Neither do we. But this one's not a debt. Then he stood, nodding once. Rest up. Tomorrow you go home. The next morning, the rain had slowed to a soft drizzle. Lorraine was discharged before noon. The medic signed her papers. The scarred one loaded her bag into the van. Maya held her hand tightly as the driver took them home. The road glistening wet under a pale gray sky. Lorraine was quiet most of the ride, staring out the window. The houses passed in a blur. Same streets she'd known all her life, yet everything looked changed. Halfway home, she turned suddenly toward the leader. I want to pay you back. He blinked. Ma'am, the hospital, she said. That bill, it's too much. I can't let strangers spend that kind of money on me. You don't owe us a cent, he said, calm but firm. Lorraine's voice rose, still fragile, but full of dignity. Then tell me why. Tell me why you'd help an old woman and her granddaughter like this, and tell me your names. I can't keep calling you those men who helped us. He looked out the window, rain streaking across the glass. Because some things don't need explaining right away, he said quietly. That's not good enough, she insisted. I was raised to pay back what's due, and I can't rest until I know who you are, and why you did this. He turned to meet her eyes, something unreadable behind his steady calm. You'll know, Mom, when we're home. When they pulled up to her small blue house, the scarred one and another helped her inside. The living room smelled faintly of dust and rain. Family photos lined the mantel. Her husband, her daughter, little Maya in diapers. The medic checked her vitals one more time. You're strong, ma'am. Just tired. Rest and good food should fix that. Good food, she said dryly. Depends on what's in the pen. The driver grinned and carried in 2 grocery bags, already handled. Lorraine chuckled weakly. You men think of everything. Then her expression hardened again. Accept answers and names. The leader exhaled, setting his gloves on the table. You really want to know? I do, she said, sitting straighter. If you're going to spend money on me, I need to understand why, and I need to know who you are. The room went quiet, except for the hum of the old refrigerator. Outside, thunder rumbled far off, faint and tired, like a memory echoing through the clouds. The leader stepped forward, removing his vest and hanging it over a chair. His voice, when it came, was quiet, but certain. 12 years ago there was a snowstorm, the kind that shuts down everything. Roads blocked, power lines down. We were 5 bikers stranded on Route 35. Nobody would let us in. Every door slammed shut. Lorraine froze. Her fingers tightened around the blanket on her lap. Except one, he continued. A small diner, warm lights, smell of coffee and stew. You were there, ma'am. Lorraine's table. You and your husband Louis opened your door, fed us, let us sleep by the fire. You wouldn't take a dime. Her eyes widened, tears flooding before she could blink. Lord have mercy, he nodded slowly. You told us that night the world needed more kindness, that it cost nothing to be decent. He paused. We didn't forget. Lorraine covered her mouth with one trembling hand. That was 12 years ago. I remember that storm. 5 men, half frozen. You were one of them. Yes, ma'am. His smile was faint but real. And last night your granddaughter ran through a storm just like that one. She found us, just like you said she should. Full circle. Tears streamed down her cheeks. All these years I wondered if you made it home safe. We did, the scarred one said softly from the doorway. Because of you. Lorraine shook her head in disbelief. You came back. After all this time, she wiped her eyes. But I still don't know your names. You saved my life, paid my bills, and I don't even know what to call you. The leader smiled gently. Fair enough, ma'am. My name's Jackson Morrison. People call me Jax. He gestured to each of his brothers in turn. This here's Marcus Prophet Stone. That's William Bull Thompson. The medic is David Doc Hayes, and the quiet one's Aaron St. Miller. Each man nodded as he was introduced. Lorraine looked at them, committing each name to memory, her tears flowing freely now. Jax, Prophet, Bull, Doc, Saint, she repeated softly. Thank you, all of you, for remembering, for coming back. Real bikers don't forget kindness, Jax said. Her voice cracked as she laughed through tears. You're good men, better than most. Jax's smile faded slightly. We're trying to be, you taught us that. Lorraine looked around the small house, her eyes landing on the faded photograph of her diner on the wall. The sign still read Lorraine's Table, but even with all this help, Lorraine felt a lingering ache. Her old diner, the heart of her life, her late husband's legacy was gone. Stolen by Vernon, sold for cash, left to decay. She tried not to think about it, but the loss sat heavy in her chest, especially at night when sleep wouldn't come. I miss that diner, she whispered. It was everything Lewis and I built. Jax's brow furrowed. What happened to it, ma'am? If you don't mind me asking. She hesitated, then sighed. The pain was still there, even after all this time. Lewis's nephew, Vernon Harris, he came after Lewis died. He said he would help me run the restaurant because I was too old and frail to manage it myself. Her voice turned bitter. I signed papers I didn't understand. Legal documents. He said it was just to help with the business, to make it easier for me. Prophet muttered under his breath. Con man. Lorraine nodded weakly. By the time I realized what I'd signed, he owned 60% of it. Then he said the business was failing, that we needed to sell. I didn't want to, but he had the legal right. Her voice broke. He sold it to some investor from out of town, took the money to pay off his gambling debts, and disappeared. Changed his number, moved away. I haven't heard from him since. That's theft, Doc said, his voice hard. Legal theft, but theft all the same. I tried to fight it, Lorraine said. Got a lawyer, but Vernon had everything documented. Said I'd signed it willingly, that I understood what I was doing. The lawyer said it would cost more to fight than I'd ever get back. So I let it go. Lost the diner, lost Lewis's legacy. All I had left was this house, and Maya. Jax's eyes hardened. What's happening with the place now? Last I heard, the owner let it fall apart, Lorraine said. Hasn't done anything with it. Just sitting there empty, rotting away. All those years Lewis and I poured into that place, and it's just dying. Bull's jaw clenched. Man steals from his own family. He called it business. Lorraine said quietly. Said I was too old to run it anyway, that he was doing me a favor. Then he took the money and ran. The room grew quiet, one of those silences that carries too much truth to fill with words. The rain had stopped outside, but the heaviness lingered inside the walls. Maya, who'd been silent through most of it, crawled onto her grandmother's lap. Her small voice trembled. It's not fair, Grandma. Lorraine smoothed the girl's damp curls, her own eyes distant. No, baby, it's not, but life doesn't always play fair. We just have to stand back up when it knocks us down. The men exchanged glances, a current passed through them, unspoken, electric, the kind that doesn't need words. Miss Lorraine, Jack said finally, his tone careful but certain. If you could have it back, the diner, would you want to? Lorraine blinked, caught off guard. Of course I would. That place was my life, but dreams like that belong to younger hands now. I don't have the strength or the money to start over. Bull leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You still want that diner back? Lorraine sighed. Of course I do, but that's over now. I don't have the money, and I'm too old to start again. Jax shook his head. You're not too old, you just got screwed over by the wrong people. She gave a tired smile. That's life, I guess. Jax stood up, adjusting his vest. No, that's someone taking what isn't theirs. Lorraine looked up at him. And what can you do about that? Jax met her eyes. We'll figure it out. Lorraine frowned, not sure what he meant, but before she could ask, he tipped his head respectfully. Get some rest, ma'am. You'll need it. When the bikers left, The sound of their engines rolled down the street like a heartbeat fading into the night. Lorraine sat by the window long after, watching the taillights disappear, her granddaughter asleep against her shoulder. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel lonely. It felt like it was holding its breath. Outside, under the yellow glow of the streetlight, 5 motorcycles waited a moment longer, then turned the corner, carrying with them a silent vow. The days that followed blurred into a rhythm of unexpected kindness. Every morning, Prophet appeared with coffee so strong it could wake the dead, leaving it steaming on her porch with the newspaper folded neatly beneath. Bull fixed the sagging porch railing without being asked, humming old country tunes as he worked. Saint replaced the fence posts, one by one, while Maya rode slow laps around the block on his Harley, waving like she was in a parade. Doc checked Lorraine's vitals every few days, pretending it was just habit, though the look in his eyes said it was more than duty. At first Lorraine protested. "You boys have families, jobs, your own lives." Bull only smiled. "Sure do, but your family now too, ma'am. We just found you late, that's all." Whenever Jax came by, Maya would run to the porch before his engine even stopped, that bright laugh of hers chasing the last of the sickness from the house. He'd sit beside her on the swing, teaching her how to read a map, explaining the stories behind each patch on his vest, the miles, the brothers, the losses, and somehow, in those quiet afternoons, laughter returned to a place that had forgotten it. Lorraine noticed the details, the fridge never empty, the bills paid before she even opened them, the flowers that kept appearing in the window vase. None of them ever mentioned money, they just showed up. One afternoon, Jax arrived with Prophet and Bull. They looked different, focused, restless, like men who'd already made a decision. "Miss Lorraine," Jax said, leaning on the porch railing, "we've got something to talk about." She set her coffee down slowly. "That sounds serious." "Not bad serious," Prophet added with a grin. "Good serious." Bull nodded. "We've been working on something, a project." "What kind of project?" They exchanged a look, shared amusement, shared secrecy. Jax's smile gave nothing away. "You'll see soon enough," he said. "Just promise you'll trust us a little longer." Lorraine tried to pry more out of them, but the men were stone walls with kind eyes. After they left, she sat by the window again, heart unsettled but curious. When she asked Maya what they were up to, the girl's grin nearly split her face. "It's a surprise, Grandma, you'll see." Weeks passed, and the visits grew shorter, though the evidence of their presence was everywhere. Muddy boots by the porch, new nails in the fence, sawdust still clinging to Bull's jacket. Sometimes Jax would show up late, dust on his hands and exhaustion in his eyes, only to say, "Just checking in," before heading back out. The house was quieter but not empty, it was waiting. Lorraine's strength returned faster than the doctors predicted. They called it remarkable recovery. She called it something else. Grace. One bright Saturday morning, a knock came at the door. When Lorraine opened it, Jax was standing there, grinning beneath that familiar storm-gray gaze. "Morning, Miss Lorraine," he said. "You up for a little ride?" She laughed softly, leaning on the doorframe. "You know I'm still supposed to be taking it easy." "That's fine," he said, the corner of his mouth lifting. "We'll drive. You just sit back and let us handle the rest." They helped her into Bull's truck, Maya perched beside her, eyes wide with curiosity. The convoy rolled through town, down Main Street, past the post office, past the old hardware store, until Jax pulled over in front of the old brick building. But it didn't look old anymore. The windows gleamed, the brick had been cleaned and repointed, fresh paint brightened the trim, and above the door, the original sign hung proud, "Lorraine's Table." Lorraine's breath caught, her hand flew to her mouth. "Come on," Jax said softly, "come see what we did." The brothers helped her out, steadying her on each step. A ribbon of red fabric stretched across the door. The whole town seemed to be gathering behind them. Neighbors, shopkeepers, church ladies, people Lorraine had known her whole life. Jax handed her a pair of scissors. "It's yours, Miss Lorraine. Always was, always will be. We just brought it home." Lorraine's hands trembled as she took the scissors. Tears streamed down her face. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll open it," Prophet grinned. "That's all we need." She cut the ribbon, and the crowd erupted in cheers. The bikers' engines roared like thunder, and people clapped and whistled. Jax opened the door, and Lorraine stepped inside. Everything was perfect. The booths Louis had built with his own hands, restored and polished. The counter where she'd served coffee for 20 years, refinished and gleaming. The old photos on the walls, cleaned and reframed. Even the kitchen was exactly as she remembered it, but better. New equipment, but arranged just the way she liked it. In the corner, a small plaque read, "Restored by the Hells Angels MC, in honor of Lorraine and Louis Jenkins, who taught us that kindness costs nothing but means everything." Lorraine broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. Maya hugged her tight, crying too. The brothers stood back, letting her have this moment. "It's perfect," Lorraine finally whispered. "It's exactly perfect. Louis would be proud," Jack said quietly. Lorraine looked at him, at all of them. These rough men in leather, who had given her back more than a building. They'd given her back hope, purpose, her husband's legacy. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you doesn't even come close, but thank you. You saved us first," Jack said. "We're just returning the favor." On a bright Saturday morning, Lorraine's table opened its doors for the first time in 3 years. The line stretched down the block. It seemed like half the town had shown up. Some because they remembered Lorraine from the old days, others because they'd heard the story and wanted to support it, still others because they were curious about the diner the bikers had restored. The Hells Angels parked their motorcycles out front in a neat line, a statement of protection and pride. They weren't just customers, they were family now, and everyone knew it. Inside, the space glowed with warmth. Comfortable booths, photographs on the walls showing the restoration process. A mural painted by local art students showed people of all kinds sharing a meal. Bikers and businessmen, children and elderly, everyone welcome. Lorraine stood behind the counter in a clean apron, her eyes shining with tears of joy, as people filed in. She was thinner than she'd been before the collapse, and she moved a bit slower, but the light in her eyes was brighter than it had been in years. Maya, dressed in a matching apron, helped greet customers. "Welcome to Grandma's table," she said to each person with a bright smile. "Everyone's family here." The first meal served was to the Hells Angels. They sat at the counter, Jack's Prophet, Bull Doc and Saint, and Lorraine brought them plates of pancakes and eggs and bacon and coffee. "On the house," she said firmly, when Jax tried to pay. "Today and always, you boys eat free here, forever." "Can't do that," Jax protested. "You've got a business to run." "I've got a life because of you," Lorraine countered. "I've got my granddaughter safe and happy because of you. I've got this place because of you. So yes, you eat free. That's not negotiable." She paused, her voice softening. "Besides, you boys are family now, and family takes care of each other." Jax looked at his brothers. They all nodded. Sometimes you had to let people give back. Sometimes grace meant accepting kindness as much as giving it. "Yes, ma'am," Jack said quietly. "Thank you." The day was a blur of activity, every seat filled, people waiting for tables, Lorraine moving through the diner with practiced grace, stopping to chat with customers, to laugh, to make everyone feel welcome. Maya helped where she could, bringing water and crayons to kids, her presence adding to the warmth of the space. Around noon the door opened and Vernon Harris walked in. The room didn't go silent, but several heads turned. The bikers noticed immediately. Their eyes tracked Vernon as he stood uncertainly by the door, looking around. He wore a rumpled suit that had seen better days, his hair uncombed, his face carrying the weight of a man who'd lost everything. Lorraine saw him too. For a moment she hesitated. Then slowly she walked over. "Hello, Vernon." "Hi, Aunt Lorraine." He looked uncomfortable, ashamed. "I saw you were open. Thought I'd come by. Would you like a table?" Vernon blinked, surprised. "You'd serve me, after everything I did?" Lorraine was quiet for a long moment. The whole diner seemed to hold its breath. Even the bikers watched, ready to move if needed, but waiting to see what she would do. "Everyone's welcome here, Vernon," Lorraine said finally. "That's what the sign says. That's what this place has always been about." She led him to a small table by the window, brought him a menu, treated him like any other customer, with dignity, but not special treatment. When she brought his food, a simple breakfast plate, Vernon looked up at her with red-rimmed eyes. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "For everything. For stealing from you, for taking what Uncle Louis built, for—" "I know," Lorraine said, cutting him off gently. She sat down across from him for just a moment. I know you're sorry, Vernon. But sorry doesn't give me back the 3 years I lost. Sorry doesn't undo the betrayal. I know, he whispered. I don't expect you to forgive me. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry, that I was wrong. Lorraine studied him for a long moment. She could see the brokenness in him, the shame, the genuine remorse. But she could also see the damage he'd done, not just to her but to himself. I do forgive you, Vernon, she said finally. But forgiveness doesn't mean trust. Forgiveness doesn't mean there aren't consequences. You stole from family, you took advantage of me when I was grieving Louis. That's not something that just goes away because you say you're sorry. Vernon nodded, tears streaming down his face. I understand. Do you? Lorraine leaned forward. Because I'm not sure you do. You didn't just take a business from me, Vernon. You took my husband's legacy. You took the place where we built our life together. You took my purpose, and you did it for money. I know, Vernon sobbed. I know, and I hate myself for it. I lost everything trying to make that place profitable. I cut corners, changed things, and it all fell apart. I deserved to lose it. Yes, you did, Lorraine said bluntly. But losing it isn't the same as learning from it. She stood up, ready to return to her other customers. You're welcome to eat here, Vernon. You're welcome to come back. But earning my trust, that's going to take a lot more than an apology and some tears. That's going to take you becoming a different person than the one who stole from me. How do I do that? Vernon asked desperately. That's not my job to figure out, Lorraine said. That's yours. You want to be better. Then be better. Make different choices. Treat people right. Live honestly. But don't expect me to hold your hand through it. You're a grown man, Vernon. Act like one. She walked away, leaving him sitting there with his breakfast and his shame. Vernon ate in silence, watching the diner bustle with life, watching Lorraine and Maya work together, watching the bikers chat easily with other customers, watching people laugh and smile in a space that radiated warmth and kindness, all the things he'd destroyed when he'd owned it. And something inside him began to crack open. Not hope, not yet, but the first stirring of understanding about how far he'd fallen and how much work it would take to climb back up. When he finished eating, he left money on the table, exact change, nothing more, nothing less, and walked out quietly. Lorraine watched him go from the window, her expression unreadable. Maya came to stand beside her. Is Uncle Vernon going to be okay? The little girl asked. I don't know, baby, Lorraine said honestly. That's up to him. I gave him the truth, both the hard part and the hopeful part. What he does with it is his choice. I hope he chooses to be good, Maya said. Me too, baby. Me too. Spring had settled softly over Oakridge. Lorraine's table was thriving, mornings filled with chatter, the smell of coffee, and the warm hum of community. The Hells Angels still stopped by like clockwork, parking their bikes along Main Street. They'd become as much a part of the diner's identity as Lorraine herself. One evening, as the last customer left, Prophet came in with a newspaper tucked under his arm. His face was grim. Lorraine, he said quietly, laying it on the counter. Local man arrested for the heft and fraud. Below the headline was Vernon's photo. The article detailed a string of thefts from local businesses, small amounts, but consistent. Vernon had been caught, stealing from the hardware store, where he'd been working part-time. Lorraine stared at the photograph, her hand trembling slightly. He's in county lockup, Prophet said. Bail's set at $5,000. From what I hear, he can't make it. The diner went silent. Maya looked up from her homework, eyes wide. Lorraine folded the paper carefully and set it aside. After a long moment, she said, I need to see him. Jax frowned. Miss Lorraine, you don't owe him anything. I know, she said, but he's still family, and if I don't go, I'll regret it. A few days later, Jax drove Lorraine to the county jail. He offered to come in with her, but she shook her head. This is something I need to do alone, she said. Inside, Vernon looked smaller than she remembered, defeated, pale under the fluorescent lights. His hands trembled as he picked up the phone on his side of the glass. Aunt Lorraine, he said, voice cracking. You came. I did. Her tone was measured, careful. I heard what happened. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I know that doesn't mean anything anymore, but I'm sorry. I tried to do better. I really did. but I couldn't find steady work, couldn't pay rent, I was desperate, and I made another stupid choice. You made a choice to steal, Lorraine said firmly. Not a stupid choice, a criminal choice. There's a difference. Vernon flinched. You're right, you're absolutely right. Why did you come to the diner that day? Lorraine asked. Opening day. Why did you show up? Because I wanted to see what I'd destroyed, Vernon said quietly. I wanted to see what the place looked like when it was loved and cared for, instead of exploited, and I wanted to see if there was any chance you could forgive me. I told you that day that I did forgive you, Lorraine said, and I meant it, I still mean it. Vernon's eyes filled with tears. Then why does it still hurt so much? Because forgiveness from me doesn't fix what's broken inside you, Lorraine said gently. I can forgive you all day long, Vernon, but if you don't forgive yourself and do the hard work of changing, it doesn't matter. I don't know how to change, he whispered. I don't know how to be better. Lorraine was quiet for a long moment, then she said, you start by facing what you've done, really facing it, not just saying you're sorry, but understanding the harm you caused. You stole from me, yes, but you also stole from yourself, your integrity, your chance to be someone Uncle Louis would have been proud of. Uncle Louis would hate me, Vernon said. Maybe, Lorraine admitted, or maybe he'd be heartbroken that his nephew became someone who hurt people for money. But Vernon Lewis believed in second chances. He believed people could change if they really wanted to. Do you believe I can change? Vernon asked, looking at her with desperate hope. Lorraine met his eyes. I believe anyone can change if they choose to. But Vernon, you keep making the same choices. You say you're sorry, but then you steal again. You say you want to be better, but you don't do the work. What work? Tell me what to do, and I'll do it. That's the problem, Lorraine said. You're asking me to tell you how to be a decent person. That's not something I can teach you, Vernon. That's something you have to decide for yourself. Vernon broke down, pressing his forehead against the glass. I've ruined everything. I've lost everything. I don't know how to come back from this. You come back one day at a time, Lorraine said. You serve your time. You get help, real help, counseling or whatever you need. You figure out why you keep making these choices, and then when you get out, you prove through your actions that you've changed. Not through words, through actions. And if I do that, Vernon looked up, wiping his eyes. If I really do the work and change, would there be a place for me after? Lorraine was quiet for a long moment. The question hung between them, heavy with possibility and risk. If you do the real work, she said finally, if you genuinely change and become someone trustworthy, then maybe. But Vernon, that's a long road. That's months, maybe years of proving yourself, and I won't know if you're serious until I see it. How long is he sentenced for? She asked. 6 months, maybe more depending on the judge, Vernon said, plus probation. Then you'll have 6 months to think, Lorraine said. 6 months to decide who you want to be when you walk out of here. Use that time, Vernon. Really use it. She stood to leave, then paused. I'll write to you. Not often, but sometimes. Because you're family, and family doesn't give up completely. But don't mistake that for weakness. I'm giving you a chance to prove yourself, nothing more. Vernon nodded, unable to speak. As Lorraine walked out of the jail, she felt the weight of the decision settle on her shoulders. Jax was waiting by the truck, and he could see the strain on her face. You okay? He asked. I don't know if I did the right thing, she admitted. Maybe I'm being a fool. Maybe he'll never change. Maybe, Jax said. But you gave him the truth along with the grace. That's all you can do. The rest is up to him. On a cold January morning, Vernon Harris walked out of county jail with a worn duffel bag and a mind full of hard-won lessons. He'd spent 6 months thinking, reading, attending counseling sessions offered by the jail. He'd written letters to Lorraine, to the people he'd stolen from, to himself, but he wasn't expecting anyone to be waiting for him. When he stepped into the parking lot, he saw them. 5 motorcycles, engines idling low, the Hells Angels, with Jax at the front. Vernon stopped, uncertain. When he stepped into the parking lot, he saw them. 5 motorcycles, engines idling low, the Hells Angels, with Jax at the front. Vernon stopped, uncertain.
Didn't expect a ride, Jax called out. I didn't think anyone would come, Vernon said honestly. Lorraine asked us to, Jax said. Said if you got out, we should make sure you got to where you needed to go. He held out a helmet. You got a place to stay? Vernon shook his head. Not yet. I was going to try the shelter. Jax nodded. Get on, we'll figure it out. The ride through town was surreal. Vernon had spent 6 months in a cell, and now he was on the back of a Harley, riding with men who had every reason to hate him. When they pulled up to Lorraine's table, his stomach dropped. I don't think I should, Vernon started. She wants to see you, Bull said, cutting him off. Don't make her wait. Inside the diner was quiet. It was mid-morning, between breakfast and lunch. Lorraine stood behind the counter, and when Vernon walked in, she studied him carefully.
He looked different, thinner, older, but something in his eyes had changed. The arrogance was gone. The entitlement was gone. What remained looked like humility. Hello, Vernon, she said. Hello, Aunt Lorraine. His voice was steady but respectful. Thank you for writing to me, for not giving up on me completely. Sit down, she said, gesturing to the counter. You hungry? Yes, ma'am. She made him a plate, eggs, bacon, toast, coffee, simple food made with care. Vernon ate slowly, savoring it. I read your letters, Lorraine said. All of them. I meant every word, Vernon said. I know I said I was sorry before, but I didn't really understand what I was sorry for. I just didn't want you to be mad at me. But in there, I had time to really think about what I did, how I hurt you, how I betrayed Uncle Louis's memory, and, Lorraine prompted. And I realized I've been making excuses my whole life, Vernon said. Blaming circumstances, blaming other people, always looking for shortcuts. But the truth is, I was selfish, I was greedy, and I hurt the one person who always tried to help me. Lorraine nodded slowly. That's a start. I know I don't deserve another chance, Vernon continued. I know I've burned every bridge, but I want to prove that I can be better. Not with words this time, with actions. What kind of actions? Lorraine asked. I got a job, Vernon said. Well, the promise of one. Pastor Miller said, if I show up every day he'll give me work at the church, maintenance, cleaning, whatever needs doing. It doesn't pay much, but it's honest work. That's good, Lorraine said. What else? I'm going to pay back everyone I stole from, Vernon said. It'll take me years, but I'm going to do it. I've got a list, and I've started writing apology letters. Real ones, not just I'm sorry, but explaining what I did, and how I'm going to make it right. Lorraine felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't the same man who'd sat at her table 6 months ago, making excuses and crying. This was someone who'd done the hard work of looking at himself honestly. I'm proud of you, Vernon, she said quietly. He looked up, eyes wide. You are. For taking responsibility, she said. For facing what you did. That takes courage. More courage than most people have. Vernon's eyes filled with tears, but he blinked them back. Does this mean, is there a chance I could earn your trust back someday? Lorraine considered this carefully. Trust isn't given, Vernon. It's built, brick by brick, day by day, through consistent action over time. So yes, there's a chance, but it's going to take a long time, and it's going to require you to keep doing what you just said you'd do. Showing up, working honestly, making amends. I'll do it, Vernon said. However long it takes, then we'll see, Lorraine said. She paused, then added, you can eat here, meals I mean, until you get on your feet, but you'll pay when you can. Even if it's just $1 at a time. Agreed, Vernon said immediately. And Vernon, Lorraine's voice hardened slightly. If you mess up again, if you steal, if you lie, if you take advantage of anyone, we're done. Completely. No more chances. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am, Vernon said solemnly. I understand. Jax, who'd been listening from a nearby booth, stood up. One more thing, he said, walking over. You hurt her again. You don't just answer to her, you answer to us, all of us. We clear? Vernon met his gaze and nodded. Crystal clear. Good, Jax said. Then welcome back. Don't screw it up. 6 months after Vernon's release, true to his word, Vernon showed up every single day. He worked at the church in the mornings, then stopped by Lorraine's table in the afternoons to help with whatever needed doing, taking out trash, washing dishes, mopping floors. He didn't ask for pay, he didn't ask for special treatment, he just showed up. Slowly, gradually, people started to notice. The town that had watched him steal and fail began to see something different. When Mrs. Henderson's fence broke, Vernon fixed it. When the school needed volunteers for a cleanup day, Vernon was there. When the hardware store owner, the man he'd stolen from, needed help unloading a truck, Vernon volunteered, and worked twice as hard as anyone else. The bikers watched too. They didn't trust easily, but they respected consistency, and Vernon was consistent. One evening, after the dinner rush, Lorraine called Vernon over. "Sit down," she said. He sat nervous. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," Lorraine said. "You've been doing everything right. That's why I want to offer you something." She slid an envelope across the counter. Vernon opened it, and found a key. "What's this?" "You've been sleeping at the shelter," Lorraine said. "And while Pastor Miller's been good to you, you need your own place. There's a small apartment above the hardware store. Mr. Chen says you can rent it. First month's paid. After that, you're on your own." Vernon stared at the key, then at her. "I don't understand. Why would you hide? You've proven yourself," Lorraine said simply. 6 months of showing up, working hard, making amends. That's not nothing, Vernon. That's character." He shook his head, overwhelmed. "I don't deserve this." "Maybe not," Lorraine said, "but you've earned the chance to deserve it. There's a difference." Vernon's hands trembled as he held the key. "Thank you," he whispered. "I won't let you down." "I know," Lorraine said, and she meant it. By the time the sun slipped behind the low hills, the last blush of daylight had drained from the sky. The soft hum inside Lorraine's table faded into evening quiet. The dinner rush had come and gone, forks clinking, laughter rising, the bell over the door chiming like a heartbeat. Lorraine Jenkins wiped her hands on her apron, and stood for a moment, listening. The clock ticked above the pastry case. The air still carried the sweet heavy scent of butter and coffee. She could hear the last few conversations winding down, the scrape of chairs, the familiar rhythm of a place settling into peace. At the counter Jax nursed a mug of black coffee. He sat with the calm stillness of a man who had seen too much, and learned to watch before moving. Prophet flipped through a newspaper. Bull debated with Vernon about which pie was better, pecan or chess. Saint restocked cups, aligning them in perfect rows. Doc sat by the window with a crossword, waiting to make sure Lorraine was fine before he left. Vernon had become part of the fabric of the place now, not an employee, not quite. Lorraine didn't pay him yet, but he was there every evening, helping close, doing whatever needed doing. The town had slowly, cautiously, accepted his presence. Some still didn't trust him. That was fair. Trust took time. Then the bell above the door gave a soft, hesitant ring. A woman stepped inside, her coat soaked through, rain dripping from her hair. Her makeup didn't quite hide the bruises on her jaw, or the fear in her eyes. A teenage girl followed close behind, thin shoulders hunched, gaze fixed on the floor. Lorraine's heart clenched. She knew that posture. She had seen too many women carry that weight. She walked toward them, her voice gentle but steady. "Evening, honey," she said. "Welcome to Lorraine's table. What can I get you to warm up?" The woman's hands shook as she clutched her purse. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Someone told me this was a safe place," she said, "that the people here help folks who need it." Lorraine didn't answer right away. She didn't have to. The air shifted. At the counter Jax lifted his head. The casual ease in his shoulders disappeared, replaced by alert stillness. Without a word, he reached for his phone. Prophet was already on his feet, sliding quietly toward the door. Vernon moved instinctively to the front window, adjusting the blinds while keeping watch on the street. He'd learned this dance over the months, how to protect, without intimidating, how to be present, without overwhelming. Lorraine touched the woman's trembling hand. "You found the right place," she said softly. "You and your girl are safe here. Come sit down, get warm, we'll figure it out." She led them to the booth nearest the kitchen, where the air smelled like cinnamon and bread. Jack stood and moved toward the door, positioning himself between it and the booth. Saint checked the lock. Bull carried 2 slices of pie to the counter without being asked. Everything happened in quiet rhythm, a choreography born of trust and practice. Lorraine returned with 2 steaming mugs of coffee. "Drink up," she said gently. "You look like you haven't sat down in a while."
Maya, now 8 years old and wise beyond her years, watched from the corner where she'd been doing homework. She climbed off her chair, walked to the teenage girl, and held up a tin of crayons. "Do you want to draw with me?" she asked. The girl, Emma, as they would later learn, hesitated, then nodded. Maya spread paper on the table and drew a big yellow sun. Emma chose a purple crayon, and began to color. For the first time that night she smiled. Jax approached the booth and crouched down beside the woman. His voice was low, calm, the kind that steadies fear. "Mayim," he said. "My name's Jax. These are my brothers, Prophet, Bull, Doc and Saint. We have resources, safe houses, lawyers, people who can make sure you and your daughter stay protected. You're not alone anymore." The woman Jennifer looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. "Why?" she whispered. "You don't even know us." Jax tilted his head slightly. "Because someone did the same for us once," he said simply. "And because this place, this diner, it's not just a restaurant, it's family, and that's what family does." Jennifer tried to speak, but her voice caught. The tears came silently, shaking her shoulders. Lorraine set a bowl of chicken soup in front of her, along with a slice of cornbread. "Eat," she said softly. "You're safe now." Prophet stepped back in from the porch, water dripping from his jacket. He gave Jax a short nod. Help was already moving. A lawyer had answered. A pastor had agreed to open a small apartment. A shelter had promised extra beds. Saint pulled out his notebook and made a call. "Evening, Pastor. It's Saint. We've got a mother and daughter who need a place tonight." Bull came forward and knelt beside Jennifer's chair. "If you'd like, I'll take your car around back. We've got a secure lot. I'll bring the keys back to you myself." Jennifer hesitated, then handed him the key fob with trembling fingers. Doc rose from his booth. "I'm a medic," he said softly. "Would you let me take a look? No charge, no questions." Jennifer nodded. Doc's hands were gentle, his assessment quick. "Bruising only," he said. "You'll heal fine. I'll leave you a kit. Ice it tonight." Vernon approached carefully, holding a paper bag. "I packed some sandwiches and fruit," he said quietly. "For tomorrow morning. There's also a slice of pie." Jennifer looked at him, then at all of them, overwhelmed. "I don't understand. Why would strangers do all this?" Lorraine sat down across from her. "Because we're not strangers, honey. We're just family you haven't met yet." The night moved forward in steady rhythm. Prophet made calls. Saint arranged housing. Bull secured the car. Doc left medical supplies. Vernon packed food. And Lorraine moved through it all like the heart of something sacred, steady, warm, always in motion. Across the booth, Maya leaned close to Emma. "The bikers helped my grandma once," she whispered. "They'll help you too. That's what they do." By the time the clock struck 10, Jennifer and Emma were ready to leave. They had a safe place to sleep, a lawyer's appointment in the morning, food for the next day, and a phone number to call if they needed anything. As they prepared to go, Jennifer turned to Lorraine. "How do I thank you for all this?" "You don't need to," Lorraine said. "You just get yourself safe and strong. That's all the thanks I need." "But I don't even know how to start," Jennifer whispered. Lorraine took her hands. "You already started. You walked through that door. You asked for help. That's the hardest part. Everything else, we'll walk through together." Saint held the door open. Prophet's umbrella appeared, sheltering Jennifer and Emma from the rain. Bull had already warmed up the van. They disappeared into the night, tail lights fading into the mist. Inside, the diner exhaled. Vernon quietly began wiping down tables. Maya gathered her crayons and homework. The bikers settled back into their seats, the tension easing from their shoulders. Lorraine stood by the window, watching the rain trace patterns on the glass. The neon sign outside cast red and blue reflections on the wet pavement. Lorraine's table. Jax came to stand beside her. "You did good tonight," he said. "We did good," she corrected. "All of us." Vernon approached hesitantly. "Miss Lorraine, I put fresh coffee on, and I'll lock up when everyone's ready to go." She turned to look at him, really look at him. The man who had stolen her diner, who had betrayed her trust, who had lost everything, and slowly, painfully, rebuilt himself into someone worthy of a second chance. "Thank you, Vernon," she said, and she meant it. He nodded, understanding the weight of those simple words. Trust wasn't fully restored. Maybe it never would be completely, but it was growing. Day by day, choice by choice. Maya climbed onto the stool beside her grandmother. "Grandma," she asked, Will they be okay? Jennifer and Emma. I think so, baby, Lorraine said. They've got help now. Good people watching out for them. That makes all the difference. Like when I ran in the rain to find Jax and his brothers. Exactly like that, Lorraine smiled. You started something that night, Maya. A ripple that keeps spreading. What do you mean? Lorraine gestured around the diner, at the bikers, at Vernon, at the warmth and safety contained within these walls. You ran for help when you needed it most. Those men answered. They saved me, then they gave me back my diner. That brought Vernon back into our lives, and gave him a chance to change. And now all of us together, we're able to help people like Jennifer and Emma. One act of courage led to all of this. So kindness keeps going? Maya asked. It does, Lorraine said. Like ripples in water. You never know where they'll end up, or who they'll touch, but they keep going. Prophet stood up, stretching. We should let you close up, he said. It's been a long day. Stay, Lorraine said. Please, have some pie. You boys worked hard tonight. Bull grinned. Don't have to ask me twice. They settled back in, and Lorraine brought out pie, pecan, chess, apple, cherry, and fresh coffee. Vernon helped serve, moving easily among them now, no longer an outsider but not quite fully inside either, finding his place, step by step. As they ate, Doc said, You know, Miss Lorraine, what you've built here, it's more than a diner. What is it then? She asked, genuinely curious. It's a lighthouse, Saint said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. He didn't speak often, so when he did, people listened. A place where people can find their way home when they're lost in the storm. Lorraine felt tears prick her eyes. Lewis used to say something like that. He said a diner should be a sanctuary, not a church. Exactly, but a place where everyone's welcome, and no one's judged, where people can rest. He was right, Jack said, and you've kept that alive. Even when Vernon tried to destroy it, even when you lost everything, you held on to that vision. And now look, he gestured around the warm space, it's stronger than ever. Vernon, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. I'm sorry I almost destroyed that, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm sorry I didn't understand what this place meant, what Uncle Lewis built, what you protected, Aunt Lorraine. You understand now, Lorraine said. That's what matters. Do I? Vernon asked. I mean, I understand that I was wrong, but do I really understand what this place is, what it means to people? Lorraine considered this. Understanding comes from doing. Vernon, you've been here 6 months watching, helping, seeing how people come here not just for food, but for connection, for safety, for hope. Keep watching, keep helping. Understanding will come. Bull clapped Vernon on the shoulder. You're doing good, son. Keep it up. The rain had stopped by the time they prepared to leave. The street outside glistened under the street lights, clean and fresh. The bikers pulled on their vests, checked their phones, prepared to ride. At the door, Jax paused. Miss Lorraine, he said, you remember what you told us 12 years ago, that night in the snowstorm? I said a lot of things that night. Lorraine smiled. My mouth runs when I'm cooking. You said that kindness costs nothing but means everything, Jax said. And you said the world would be a better place if more people just chose to be decent to each other. I remember, Lorraine said softly. You were right, Jax said, and you proved it. You showed us that night, and you've shown us every day since. This place, Lorraine's table, it's proof that one person choosing kindness can change the world, or at least one corner of it. Prophet nodded. You changed us, Miss Lorraine, made us better men, and we're going to keep spreading that. Bull added. Every town we ride through, every person we meet, we're going to remember what you taught us. Doc stepped forward. We're heading out next week, long ride west, but we'll be back. You better be, Lorraine said, pulling each of them into a hug. This is your home too. Saint, the quiet one, was last. He hugged Lorraine gently and whispered, thank you for seeing us as human beings. Not everyone does. Everyone is a human being, Lorraine said firmly, with a story, with worth, with dignity. Never forget that. The engines roared to life, one by one. 5 motorcycles lined up in the street, chrome gleaming under the lights. Jax raised his hand in farewell, and they rolled out, the sound of their engines fading into the night, like distant thunder. Vernon stood beside Lorraine on the sidewalk, watching them go. They're good men, he said. The best, Lorraine agreed. Do you think? Vernon hesitated. Do you think I could ever be like them? Good like that. Lorraine turned to look at him. You're already becoming that, Vernon. You're not the same man who stole from me. You're not even the same man who got out of jail 6 months ago. You're becoming someone new, someone honest, someone trustworthy. I want to be, Vernon said. I want to be the kind of man who helps people, like they helped tonight. The kind of man Uncle Lewis would have been proud of. Then keep doing what you're doing, Lorraine said. Show up, work hard, tell the truth, help when you can. That's all any of us can do. They went back inside. Vernon locked the door, flipped the sign to closed, and began the final cleanup. Maya had fallen asleep in one of the booths, her homework scattered around her. Lorraine covered her with a blanket and let her rest. As Vernon mopped the floors and Lorraine counted the register, a comfortable silence settled between them. It wasn't the silence of strangers or the tension of unforgiven wrongs. It was the silence of people learning to trust again. Slowly, carefully, Aunt Lorraine, Vernon said after a while. Yes, thank you for not giving up on me. I know I didn't deserve another chance. I know I hurt you badly, but thank you for seeing something in me worth saving. Lorraine stopped counting and looked at him. Vernon, I didn't save you. You saved yourself. I just gave you the space to do it. And that's what this place is, a space for people to save themselves, with a little help from their family. Vernon smiled, and for the first time since he'd come back, it reached his eyes. Real, genuine, unguarded. Family, he repeated. I like that. So do I, Lorraine said. She finished counting, locked the register, and turned off the lights in the kitchen. The diner settled into darkness, except for the neon sign outside, still glowing red and blue. Lorraine's table, everyone welcome. Vernon carried Maya to the car, while Lorraine gathered their things. As they prepared to leave, Lorraine took one last look around the diner, the booths Lewis had built, the counter where they'd served thousands of meals, the walls covered with photos of smiling faces, customers who had become friends, friends who had become family. This place had been stolen from her, had been given back, had been restored not just with hammer and nails, but with love and loyalty, and the stubborn refusal to let kindness die. Ready? Vernon asked, holding the door open. Ready, Lorraine said. They stepped out into the cool night air. The street was empty, peaceful. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of motorcycles echoed. Jax and his brothers, still riding, still protecting, still spreading the kindness they'd learned at this very diner, 12 years ago. Maya stirred in Vernon's arms. Grandma, she murmured, half asleep. Yes, baby. Did we help them? Jennifer and Emma. We did, sweetheart. We helped them. Good, Maya said, settling back into sleep. That's what we do. Lorraine smiled, her heart full. Yes, baby, that's exactly what we do. Vernon secured Maya in the back seat, and they drove home through the quiet streets of Oakridge, past the church where Vernon worked each morning, past the hardware store where he'd stolen and now rented an apartment, past the courthouse where he'd been sentenced and had chosen to change. Every street held a memory, some painful, some beautiful, all necessary. When they reached Lorraine's little blue house, Vernon helped carry Maya inside and laid her gently in her bed. Lorraine tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and whispered a prayer of gratitude. At the door, Vernon paused. See you tomorrow, Aunt Lorraine. Tomorrow, she confirmed. Same as always, he echoed, and there was peace in those words. Routine, reliability, trust being built one day at a time. After he left, Lorraine sat in her living room, the house quiet around her. On the mantel, a photo of Lewis smiled at her, young and strong and full of dreams. Beside it, a newer photo showed Maya, Lorraine and the 5 bikers standing in front of the restored diner. We did it, Lewis, she whispered to the photo. We kept the dream alive, and we made it even bigger than we imagined. Outside, the wind carried the faint rumble of motorcycles in the distance. Somewhere out there, 5 men rode through the night, carrying with them the lessons learned at a small diner in Oakridge. Lessons about kindness, about second chances, about the power of seeing people's hearts instead of their appearances. And in that diner, tomorrow morning, the lights would come on again, the coffee would brew, the griddle would heat, people would gather, some for food, some for connection, some for safety, some just because they needed to be seen. Everyone welcome. That was the promise, that was the legacy, That was Lorraine's table, and it would stand as long as there were people willing to choose kindness over judgment, grace over grudges, love over fear, one meal at a time, one person at a time, one act of courage at a time, the ripples spreading outward, touching lives in ways no one could predict or measure, but everyone could feel. In the morning, Lorraine would wake early, she would make coffee, she would unlock the diner, she would turn on the lights, and whoever walked through that door, scared or hungry, broken or lost, guilty or innocent, would find the same thing Maya had found in the rain, the same thing Jax and his brothers had found in a snowstorm, the same thing Vernon had found in his darkest moment, a seat at the table, a place to belong, a family that chose love, and that, Lorraine knew as she drifted off to sleep, was everything. That was the whole world.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.